Now it's officially time for the Insight All the Way. We welcome you on board to be part and parcel of the conversation. Once again, I have Professor Ben Sihanya, constitutional law expert. Right at the center, we have Viron Ochola, economic inclusion and research officer. And last but not least, we have Professor Gitile Naitule, governance and policy expert. The conversation tonight is about Kenya Kwanza's performance. That is 3 years and counting. But above everything, we look at the political situation in the country. I mean, the overall assignments of President William Ruto and the status of delivery, the state of the opposition. If they say that, of course, President William Ruto should not go it the second time, then who is capable of, reviving the situation of the country? Above everything, we take a look at the broad-based government and what it means about the people of Kenya, or about basically just ensuring that we are politically safe. Gentlemen, we come back to you, and we left it at that note where Professor says that if you cannot deliver, in the first term, in 1 year, then the probability of you delivering on the second, the third, and the fourth, and even a second term is as good as nil. Professor Sihanya, we come back to you. At first, they argued that they had done so much, that is the Kenya Kwanza government. It's just that they felt they have been let down by the communications team, in that the team was not good enough in terms of communicating what it is that the government has done. Today, they have presented us with a report that speaks of the numerous things they see, and they say that number-wise and data-wise, they have achieved. What do you make of that report that, Joash Onsari has just walked us through, based on the many tenets that you spoke of that would, tell us whether a government has performed well or not?
Yeah, so that is a very important question on the table, and I would approach it using a three-pronged framework inspired by the Holy Trinity. Number one, on the question of actual performance of the Ruto administration in the first 3 years, there is the issue of the government perspective or the government report or self-assessment, if you like, or self-evaluation, and then there is the evaluation by the critics. On some of the key parameters, you would see that really the performance is actually what either they say, or you can objectively verify and say, yes, that's much better. And you can take, just for example, some examples that you could take is that during the past two administrations, Kibaki and Kenyatta too, some people would say that most of Kenya's resources on infrastructure were completely focused on a specific region, where, for example, Kibaki and Kenyatta too came from. Take an example. Thika Superhighway was a very important infrastructure project, which could have financed so much infrastructure in many parts of the country, but it served a specific region. So you could, and then others would tell you that compared to that, the infrastructure development is more dispersed. So those are parameters that you can check. Number two, there's this statement that that if you can't perform in the first 3 years or in your first term, definitely, or even some people are saying even in the first year, then definitely you are a total non-performer and cannot perform in subsequent years or in a second term. That's not necessarily true. I can give you, I invited us, even if you were to say this administration has not performed, suppose for purpose of argument, for purpose of argument only, hypothetically, if you said that they have not performed on all the parameters or on any parameter, that's not necessarily true. I invited us to compare Ruto at 3 with, for example, Kibaki at 3. Let me just focus, for example, on Kibaki and Kenyatta 2 at 3. What did we see in Kenyatta, Kibaki at 3? Or even at 5. Road network in this country was non-existent except in the central Kenya region. By 2007, go and check the data. And many people could not use roads past Gilgil, beyond Gilgil, or other parts of this country. You had either to fly or something, or really risk a lot of pain traveling by road. road infrastructure only picked up nationwide a little, but most of it was the Kasupaebe issues post 07 in the Grand Coalition administration. You could take any other key parameter, and that most economists who are sensitive to political economy and to equity have said that there may have been some growth in the Kibaki administration. But some say that even the variables on how to measure growth was changed to include the informal economy. But even if you grant them that there was growth in the first administration, there may have been growth without equity. Okay. Even in employment, etc., etc. In fact, some of the parts of this country realized a lot of dismissal from government jobs. Okay. And it was well known in the first Kibaki administration. Did he perform better in the second administration? Yes, and partly because now the issue of he was forced by the circumstances of 0708, and 0708 was also because Kibaki had made Kenya and the government mainly focusing on his backyard. And that's why 0708 happened, because of those economic disparities and economic discrimination. Did Kibaki perform better in 2008, 2013? Many people say yes. Also, when there was success, they say it was Kibaki. When there was a challenge during that period, they say then it was the ODM side that is to be blamed. So if there is credit, it was to be given to Kibaki. If there is blame, it was to be given to the coalition partners, which is also quite disingenuous. So we must confront these questions very directly and say that some of these are just rumors. I would leave it on that, unless you have...
Yeah, and that's good, because then, of course, when you paint that picture of the Grand Coalition government, it would bring us to the question of the broad-based government. Do you suppose that this is a president that is committed to bringing change and committed to standing out compared to the others, that perhaps he goes ahead to see the need of bringing, his political enemy to his side, so that then he can successfully perhaps get to achieve what it is that the likes of Kibaki did, and what it is that, the government that he sat in managed to achieve, in the sense of course, a broad-based government, and saying that then this comes in to bring some element of peace that would allow his government to perform well. Before we come to you, Byron.
When I was a commissioner for national cohesion, we did a research to find out whether Kenyans are naturally tribal. Okay. You'll be shocked what we find. The more educated you are, the more tribal you are. You become. The other Kenyans, our normal Kenyans, are fantastic. They live very nicely. Because Supai was 36 billion. You know the outer ring road. Yes. You know all the roads in Nairobi. All the roads in Nairobi, there were many during Kibaki time. The track roads in the country, they were all made during Kibaki presidency. In fact, you can argue the only government that has been a Kenyan government, because there's a characteristic of the government in Kenya, they are extractive, they are colonial in nature, the governments. Mm-hmm. But the Kibaki government was probably the only Kenyan government we have had. Now, what you are having now is not broad-based government. That's just in theory. You have ODM, Kenya Kwanza administration. Okay. Or ODM UNDA, if you want to say that. And that is in violation of Article 3. All right. So it's not really broad-based. I mean, there are some guys, I mean, you can say, you see, it's in the language of the government we had after 2007. Mm-hmm. That was clearly a government of national unity. Okay. So this is... That government clearly delivered for people of Kenya. The one we had after 2008. Yes. Now, this one, I mean, the other day I was just seeing here, 123,000 children, they can't find where they are because they have been dropped out of school. I don't know whether you people read this in newspapers. Yeah. 123,000. This is a thing I tried to check yesterday because I knew I was coming here. I've been paying the SHA. I'm not registered. I went yesterday and pretended that I need to use it. They can't find me anywhere. Mm-hmm. You understand that? But I'm been paying, so that money I'm paying is booked into which account? You understand? I understand fixing NHF require 800 million. But we use 104 billion to buy a new program as if we are buying a military program. I think if you want to assess this government in all honesty, you will find that we have lost, not just these 3 years in my opinion,
right.
We have lost the last 13 years. Now let me say about the government that work. Examples are plenty on the government that succeeds. In my opinion, Kibaki government succeeded in the first year. Right. The first year we are voted the happiest people in the world. The first year. Okay. Obama's administration in the US, they succeeded in the first year. So is Margaret Thatcher in the UK. So was also Tony Blair, because Tony Blair also came when the economy was interesting. Okay. And so is Bill Clinton in America. Then in near home here, Ishelema in Zambia. When he came, the Chinese and they taken the airport. It took 1 year for him to return the government to normal. So,
what would be the measure of success in your own opinion? Is it one particular thing that a government picks and runs with, like say, free education? That would probably...
That would measure success.
Okay.
Expansion in infrastructure. That measures success.
So it could be one factor that...
Studio production, so that the jobs are created. That will make, when we indicate the success. Okay. Investment in education and health, because that's why you change people's lives. Okay? That will measure success. Energy costs, because energy is the engine for production. That will tell you that the government is succeeding. I don't see any movement in all those areas. In fact, I thought, because I can tell you, if there was ever an effective candidate in this country, it was William Ruto. He was effective. He was elected without the tribe. Okay? Yeah. He was elected because he was extremely effective. But all the things he said is like he forgot all of them after he took power.
Of course, the promises. We'll be coming to that. Prof, I know you want to respond, but briefly, let's loop in Viron. And Viron, the finances are critical to all this. If you're going to talk about development, if you're going to talk about any form of growth, the economy, being stable is critical. And we come from a phase where there's that acknowledgement that they kept on saying that we have, inherited a government we have inherited a country that is on the dogs in terms of, finances. The coffers are empty, and they kept on talking about the taxes and how we needed to tighten our belts so that at least we are at par. Or, they talked about inflation. Just how do you suppose this had affected, the promises that the economic empowerment and basically the bottom-up economy, or better, the bottom-up model, in terms of just getting it right? Because if a Prof is going to say that they have not done well in terms of all these quotas, and they argue that it is because of the economy, what could have been done different? What have they done different? How can we run with the scorecard that they have presented for themselves if at all the economy is not functioning well?
First and foremost, we cannot run with that scorecard. We can't.
Why?
And I can give you a good example. If you talk of affordable housing, have you ever seen any person who is applying materials to affordable housing? Do you know one?
But they are always, literally.
So you see, a very good question.
That is where we need to start it from. I am yet to see any group of women or young people who are supplying materials to the affordable housing project. Number one.
But do you agree that these projects are happening in the country?
Well, they may be happening, but are they happening as per the
promises
plan?
And the plan?
Because remember, at the time they were coming in, they promised 250,000 per year. From at the time they came in to now, I don't think we have achieved that. And now let me come back to the question.
Does it matter if these supplies are being done by Kenyans anyway who are capable and are able?
It matters, and it matters a lot. That's where now you have the flow of money. Okay. It means I have money in my pocket. I can be able to support another young person next to me, my family members, so that it makes it very easy for money to circulate within
What I am asking exactly is that you're talking about, maybe young Kenyans and all that.
Yes.
As long as, the projects are on and the suppliers are Kenyans, why would it be a problem that perhaps the Kenyans are not young enough and all that?
It is a problem because the project is benefiting political elites.
Okay.
Okay? And that now brings us to what we call political patronage. That I need to know professor for me to get something. But now let me come to the question that you asked and pick it where Professor Sihanya left it in terms of economic growth without inclusion and without equity. I think we are at that time where you are saying we are doing well, but when you go to the community level, people are saying different things. And I wish when you are reporting this scorecard, we would have captured the perspective of tea growers, coffee growers. You've just seen what's happening within the Sugar Belt region, and that's my home county, where you see people are saying, yes, you want to do privatization. But at the community level, we are not feeling it. So how do we ensure that there's flow and there's an inclusive economic growth? Number one is we needed, at the time the government was coming in, they needed to realize that there was an opinion in terms of how do we restructure our public debt. That way we would have said, instead of paying 7 shillings for every 10 shillings that we collect, perhaps we can restructure and pay maybe 4 shillings and not 7 shillings. That way we can have 3 shillings so that we top it up in terms of development. Again, when it comes to borrowing, when you borrow domestically, when banks realize that they can sell a loan to government because it is risk-free. So what happens? They will say, let me just give it to government and not give it to small-scale trader, because there's a likelihood that if that trader takes the money, they will not be able to pay on time. And that's what happened with the Hustler Fund. When you listen to what they are presenting in terms of Hustler Fund and how it has benefited people, what they have missed to report there is how many people have failed to repay the money. Because when someone gives you 500 shillings, what can you do? Well, even when you are going to sell eggs, it leaves you in a very bad situation. So we needed to have a candid conversation in terms of how can we have an inclusive development where young people are brought on board. Because right now, if you compare to 2 years ago, the employment in terms of contribution of the informal sector keeps on growing. And everyone is moving to that direction. When people are moving to that direction, you bring in taxes. The taxes you are bringing targets those people through presumptive taxes. It means that, again, you look at the tax expenditure. The tax expenditure only benefits the political elites. It does not benefit the common people.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Prof, I know you want to respond to the question of constitutionalism as well as rule of law, especially when we look at the legality of the existence of the broad-based government. Professor argues that it's a violation of the Constitution. Some people would label it as impunity at the highest level. But you argue that during the second term, or maybe during the Grand Coalition government is when the Kibaki government managed to, deliver for the people of Kenya. Kenyans would have expected that perhaps, we have the face of ODM that formed the Grand Coalition government and now working together with the current government. Kenyans would have expected that at least there is such growth to be witnessed, even though there's that acknowledgement that this is pure and outright impunity.
Well, so the 3 key points here are these. Number one is that is there a broad-based government, and is it constitutional, and is it impunity? Then there is the question of tribalism. What does it mean in this context when you discuss the way? And then lastly is about how debt funds have been expended historically, but especially in the pre-BBG, pre-broad-based government era. The Constitution 2010 is very clear about pre-election and post-election coalitions. And some of those are also elaborated in the Political Parties Act. Right. And it's a recognition that you might have a pre-election coalition or you might have a post-election coalition, depending on the circumstances. And Kenya has experimented with some of these. See, from the days of just immediately after independence, they used to be mainly interpersonal, inter-ethnic to some extent it's a bit inter-party, but it's mainly inter. But they were not really structured within the constitutional framework. It wasn't that very clear because Kenyatta 1 and Moi read government as in terms of a personal decision on whom I want to work with, and they didn't want any idea. That's why they killed multipartyism, which had to be revived from 1992, because it was just about me and my people, etc., etc. Right. So pre-election coalitions and post-election coalitions, or even the handshake was within that framework and the BBG. But is BBG only UDA and ODM? Please, I think let us not. History and facts are self-evident. It's what lawyers call res ipsa loquitur. It is so obvious, it's clear. This administration was essentially formed in the context of the President Ruto and DP Gachagua. A lot of the nominees at cabinet level or at PS level or at senior government level that were made by DP Gachagua are still in this administration. And even after DP Gachagua was impeached, there are CSS and PSS who are nominated by fourth President Uhuru Kenyatta. Why is that not being mentioned? Okay. And they don't belong to UDA, nor they belong to ODM. Let us not just recklessly dismiss facts which are clear. And lastly, for me, is the question of tribalism as an issue that is reflected in debt, and regionalism as an issue reflected in our debt expenditures, especially in the pre-BBG era. There are a lot of funds which were borrowed during Kibaki. Yeah, and you can even go all the way to Kenyatta 1. A lot of funds which were borrowed during Uhuru Kenyatta. Right. You will see that in terms of infrastructure, where was that concentration? And with due respect, even Mau Mau Rose, there were commitments, there were so many infrastructure projects. Where did SGR end? SGR was budgeted to end all the way to Western Kenya, Kisumu, Busia, etc. But where did it end during Kenyatta? Those are issues that Kenyans must ask. And when so that when Thika Superhighway, there's this road from Mombasa all the way to Kisumu, Busia, Malaba. It's a major international commitment that Kenya also need to build its part. But instead of helping build that, what did we do? We focus on Thika Superhighway, etc., etc. And in some parts of the backyard of Kibaki and Kenyatta, village parts are tarmacked. While in many counties in this country, until recently, and even up to now, some roads major roads connecting our counties are not tarmacked at all. And so let us check the infrastructure network, and we can look at Articles 89 and we look at Articles 188 on some of the key parameters that we should look at when we are investing our funds. Mm-hmm. It's about the population, it's about the physical facilities which are there, infrastructure facilities which are there, and it's about geographical expanse. We need to have been equitable from the word go. So this is an area. Of course, there are still challenges, even under BBG. Let us accept that. There are still challenges. Okay. But inclusivity, development with equity, development growth must go with equity. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we have the challenges we had.
And is that not supposed to be the duty of devolution? We come back to you. And is it about a president or devolution in itself, which was supposed to actually make sure that there's that equity felt across the country? But briefly, let's talk about this question of debt and him being a researcher in the space of economy. Just how bad is it when we are talking about debt and that this one individual has taken a lot of debt compared to the other and everything? And in my own understanding is that, at least with the little knowledge of economy that I have, they say that debt is actually not bad, as long as you know that you can service it, as long as you know that you are doing it within your tenets. So what is this about? Kenyatta did not borrow much, or Moi did not borrow much, Kibaki did not borrow much, but now this gentleman has borrowed much. Prof, you want to say something before he comes in?
Yes, this is my turn, actually. For me, bad policy is bad policy regardless who was proponent of that policy.
Okay.
The fact that Uhuru was Akikuyu is completely irrelevant. That SGR, I think, it should never, ever have been built by anybody who loves his country. Because the money that went to that SGR would have made the 6-line highway to Malaba from Mombasa, and you could have spared enough money to make another 6-line from Nairobi to Moyale, and another one from Mombasa to Mandera through Ola. Okay? But then, if you need that, you wouldn't be building Kenya. There is no money for stealing. So I don't know. You know, the tribalism has blinded us until we can't see anything. I just went to Homabay the other day. Beautiful road from Nairobi to Homabay. You wouldn't even think there is no road there when you listen to my friend here. You have been to Kisumu. You have seen all those roads which were being built during Kenyatta time.
Yeah.
You have been to Mombasa. You know the work that was going on during Kenyatta 1. So, I mean, sorry, not Kenyatta 1, this one. I think the tribe isn't going too much into our mind until I think we are going to develop all this trend. And in my opinion, we may have issues in the next election. We need to relax and realize that these politicians, they just make us fight each other down here. Okay. While they hit us up there. Look at the debts. Kibaki took around 630 billion. Compared to what Uhuru took and William, that's nothing. Especially nothing. Ruto has taken 3.2 trillion in 3 years. The Kibaki debt, which he handed over to Uhuru Kenyatta, was 1.89 trillion accumulated since independence. Okay? So when you look at that, you realize the money was being borrowed specifically for specific project. So in it comes in Jubilee, and you see, in my opinion, to be fair to William Ruto, what we are having now is in Jubilee phase 2. Okay, there is very little difference in terms of anything between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. The only problem is, I think, under Uhuru Kenyatta, we didn't feel it. We didn't feel the way we were feeling because the theft, which we call corruption, was controlled. It was being done by big boys only. Now, this one is a leisure fair. I think everybody who has a possession is able to take. That is why we are feeling. Okay. But otherwise, in there's at 12 trillion right now. It has exceeded 12 trillion. Okay. That means you are in trouble. But I want to agree with this young man. Most of this debt does not have to be paid. In international law, there are 2 types of debt. Okay. There is what is called regime debt, which is supposed to die with the regime. Okay. There is sovereign debt, which we must pay. What is the difference? The sovereign debt is the contract pertaining to that debt was debated by people's represented to our parliament. Mm-hmm. The money entered the consolidated fund and it was appropriated by parliament. Okay. That one we must pay. But the end debt, that is taken, we don't know who took it. It is never, the money never went to consolidated fund.
They should default?
Eh?
They should default?
No, that one is on years. You refuse to pay, and there is a legal precedent for not paying. Iraq refused to pay Saddam Hussein in debt. Okay? There is a precedent. So what we need to be asking is auditing this in debt and is paying only the debt that is served us, the one which in turn serves us, the regime. Those who took that in debt, we make them pay.
This gentleman is going to respond to that. Of course, we are going to transform it to being a question. And we actually even ask, if you want to have a stable economy, do you focus much on paying debts? Or there's a way you can strike a balance so that, I mean, if we're talking about an economy that is performing well, then the same is felt by the people that you are leading. Allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come back. Of course, we still have the 5 pillars of course, that were under the promise of the Kenya Kwanza government. We just look at them, the question of health, the question of education. We have scholars here. I don't know what you make of the status of education in the country and so much more. But above everything, the political situation and the chances for President William Ruto for a second term. After this break.